Good morning, everybody. I suppose good afternoon. There are still a few people joining the meeting, so we're going to give everybody just another minute or two to log on. I know many people are logging on during their lunch break and just getting here, so started momentarily. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our Rural Healthcare Ethics webinar. We're excited to see so many people in the room, so many people interested in this topic today. I'm Chris Scoggins. I'm Director of Special Projects for the Georgia Rural Health Innovation Center. And this webinar is being presented by our center and Mercer University School of Medicine. So we are happy to talk about this very important topic today, and looking forward to introducing you to our two great ethicists here at the School of Medicine. A couple of housekeeping items to begin with. We are recording the session today, so oops, you're probably hearing my son a little bit. We're on vacation this week, but we are recording the session so we can share it afterwards with folks if any of your colleagues are interested in hearing more about this. And also, when you entered today, you were muted, but we do encourage conversation and questions. So if at any point you do have a question, feel free to either put it in the chat or unmute yourself and ask. I'm going to start off by just kind of introducing the idea of this ECHO. I know that's a new term for a lot of you. Project ECHO is pretty well established and originally came out of the University of New Mexico. We really like it because it's a peer-to-peer collaborative learning environment. And that's all we're trying to do is talk more about ethics in the rural healthcare setting in a very collaborative way so that we can share experiences and share our shared knowledge and get to kind of a better place as a group and learn from one another. At the end of the webinar, I'll talk to you a little bit more about what you can do if you're interested in joining our full 10-session ethics ECHO, and those details will come at the very end, but we are excited about that. At this time, I'm going to turn everything over to Dr. Lauren Bunch and Dr. Brian Childs. You did read their bios originally in the announcement that we sent out, but these are two very, very talented certified clinical ethicists that are on faculty at Mercer University School of Medicine, who have a wealth of experience on a variety of ethical topics in the clinical setting. And we're very, very pleased to have them be a part of this. If you do participate in the ECHO, that 10-session collaborative learning experience, Dr. Childs and Dr. Bunch will be the faculty guiding everyone through that process. So we're excited to hear from them today. And I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Bunch.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Chris, and good afternoon, everyone. We are thrilled that you are here today to hear more about clinical ethics and hear more about our ECHO project. Just to give you a little sense of how the hour is going to go, we're going to talk first generally about what clinical ethics is, what a clinical ethicist does, just to give you a little bit of background. And certainly when I talk about that, I'll gear it toward what this application of clinical ethics would look like in the ECHO session, should you choose to pursue the entire 10-session ECHO. And then Dr. Childs and I will talk about what the sessions will look like, what the curriculum will look like, the sorts of topics that we we'll discuss. And then the plan is to be leaving plenty of time at the end for you guys to ask questions. And like Chris said, once we get to the Q&A portion, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions, or if you're more comfortable dropping your questions into the chat, we will be monitoring that. So do whatever you prefer. But I have a few slides to share to help with the discussion. So I'm going to share my screen. And if I could get a thumbs up from somebody if they're seeing a what is clinical ethics slide. Wonderful. Okay, so we want to talk a little bit about what is clinical ethics in the general sense. And it's the practical application of ethics to medicine and healthcare. And with that, what we aim to do as clinical ethicists is to help provide a structured and a principled way of resolving ethical dilemmas. So I guess one misconception that I want to get out of the way is we are not just going to wax poetic and talk philosophically. Certainly we'll be using philosophical and ethical terms and concepts, and part of our curriculum involves teaching you all more about that, but our aim is to be practical. So we're looking to help those who work in healthcare come to a solution and a resolution and a plan forward when they are dealing with some sort of ethical conflict or dilemma. And so there's a lot of topics that fall under this umbrella, as you could probably imagine. So this is a list of 5 of them. By no means are these the only 5 topics that fall under clinical ethics. And you'll see some of these, like end-of-life care, futility, patient-physician conflict, can and do occur in any setting. But we also will be focusing this echo on rural healthcare, and there certainly are some clinical ethic issues that might not be unique to rural practice, but certainly crop up a lot. So things like using limited resources and how to allocate limited resources, certainly healthcare disparities and how to resolve those healthcare disparities. That's something that comes up a lot in rural practice, of course. So what does a clinical ethicist do? As I said, a clinical ethicist helps to resolve conflicts that arise in medical practice, in particular conflicts of values that arise. And what do I mean by conflict of values? That can look like a lot of different things. So it might be that there's disagreement among family members about what their loved one who is unable to speak for themselves and make healthcare decisions would want. It could be that a patient disagrees with the healthcare team. Maybe that patient insists on some sort of intervention or treatment that the medical team is saying is not medically appropriate. And so there's a conflict there that needs to be resolved. Sometimes it's not so much a conflict of values, but an uncertainty either about what a patient's values are or what sorts of treatments would best align with those patients' values and respect those values. So those are some examples of the types of value conflict that arise and that a clinical ethicist can help to resolve. So speaking of the resolution of conflicts, the way we try to facilitate that is by helping everyone to understand the value positions in play. It's amazing how much can start to happen once we articulate those and everyone gets clear on what the value positions and conflicts are. We often are facilitating discussions. So clinical ethicists who work in a hospital often participate in family meetings and sometimes lead family meetings as a way of trying to better understand the value positions and the roots of what the conflict is. And then the hope is that we help arrive at conflict resolution, both to bring peace of mind, hopefully, to everyone involved, but also to help determine what the best plan forward is for the patient and their family. We get this a lot as clinical ethicists. People have concerns that we're just the ethics police. So are we the ethics police? In a word, no, we're not. Can say a little more about that. Just like the rest of the team caring for the patient, our goal is to help ensure that patient gets the best care possible, and also that the patient and their family remain informed and supported throughout the process. So we're here to help we're never, our goal is never to try to out someone as having done something ethically wrong. And we're collaborators. So a lot of our work is rooted in good communication. Again, so much of this conflict can arise if those communication channels are not open. And so we really strive to ensure that we are communicating with all of the relevant stakeholders and keeping everyone informed of what's going on with the patient. And finally, how does an ethics case conference work? So I'm going to talk in general terms about how case conferences work when ethicists are employed at hospitals, but this is also important because if you choose to pursue the full 10-course ECHO, it will be a very collaborative enterprise. So the way the case conference works in the hospital setting is in some ways similar to how we envision things working on the Zoom platform with the Project ECHO. So good ethics begins with good facts. We can't make ethically sound practical recommendations if we don't have our facts right. So when a clinical ethicist is consulted on a case, generally we want to do the fact gathering and make sure that we, as well as everyone else on the medical team, is on the same page in terms of what's going on with the patient. So we want to know things like the presenting illness, as well as what the course of illness has been recently. We want to know all the stakeholders involved, who's involved in the patient's care, what family members are involved with the patient. Often there are relevant contextual features that are unique to each case, but can help shed light on what's going on. Sometimes those contextual features themselves are part of what the value conflict is that's going on. And then what's the ethical conflict? So what's the root of the issue that is making it the case that ethics is consulted in the first place? And sometimes the ethical conflict is actually different from what it initially seems to be. And again, doing that fact gathering and talking to those involved with the case can help to figure out what precisely that value conflict is, which then can help guide our discussion as we try to come to some sort of solution or resolution. And so once we've done that initial fact gathering, we begin discussion. And so as part of that discussion, there's analysis of that conflict. Again, we kind of see, is it in fact what we thought it was on the surface, or is it actually a little different? And once we're clear on that conflict, we can begin to discuss what the potential resolutions and plans forward might be. And then ideally, with consensus by the group, we come to some sort of plan for a path forward. Consensus doesn't always happen, as you probably imagine, but certainly that's what we strive for. And that's, as you can imagine, things work out better for everyone, and everyone usually feels better on the case if everyone, patient, care team can come to some sort of consensus about the best plan forward. So as I said, we would be modeling this in many ways in the sessions that follow if you choose to pursue the full ECHO. So our sessions will certainly include some teaching, but the goal is that the bulk of the sessions will be discussion based, and that you as the participants will be discussing cases. It could be an ongoing case that you would like to discuss and get feedback on from the group. It could be a case that you had in the past that maybe you wish it had gone a different way, and you want to discuss that because you anticipate that one day you'll have a similar case moving forward, and you'd like to kind of have a more robust understanding of what the options might be if and when that day comes. So Dr. Childs, I don't know if you have anything you want to add on any of these slides right now. This is, again, kind of the overview of what clinical ethics is, what clinical ethicists do, and how we will be applying that to these future ECHO sessions.
Yeah, thank you. I really don't have much more to add. I do want to underscore that good ethics begins with good facts, and then underscore something that you emphasize, and that is that not only good facts, but good ethics comes from good discussion. So what's really important for this seminar is that we all are involved in the discussion, primarily coming from cases that come out of your own practice. Lauren and I both have, cases from our own history, but those aren't as useful as the ones that are arising in the practice right now. We can certainly use some of our experiences as illustrations, but this is really primarily about you all and not our presentation.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, I sort of want to echo that on it's, as someone who's done this work for several years now, it's amazing once the discussion happens and we get everyone either in a room or on a conference call, that the ideas start coming in a way that they never would if there weren't that discussion. So that really is critical to the work we do as clinical ethicists, but also will be critical to the class moving forward. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bunch. I'm going to share my screen and let you know what the list of topics that we will have available for us to discuss, and also what the calendar will look like for this program. Let me share my screen. Okay, can you all see that?
Could you make it a little bit bigger, Brian?
Yeah.
Zooming in, okay.
Is that better?
That's much better.
Okay, now again, we really want the process to involve more of our discussion of your work rather than ours. However, each session that we will begin with a very, very brief, and I mean, very brief, maybe 5, maybe 10 minutes tops, of a kind of an overview for the subject matter or the topic for each of the sessions. We'll begin with a kind of an overview of history and pivotal cases in medical ethics. In many ways, medical ethics is a relatively new field. As some might claim, medical ethics really hit its stride in our current sense with the invention of the ventilator. And that wasn't so many years ago, actually, at least for folks my age anyway. So we'll do an overview, and then we'll talk a little bit about how one does an ethics deliberation and some of the principles are involved. And then we're going to move into key cases. Now, I want to emphasize, along with Dr. Bunch, that these sessions are suggestions. If you have a topic that we are not covering in these sessions that you really want to bring up, we will, of course, entertain that. But we will want to cover, things like the notion of capacity, competence, informed consent, because in many ways, informed consent and the respect for autonomy is one of the linchpins of modern medical ethics. And then the all important, we'll move into end-of-life discussions, end-of-life issues. And we're going to reserve at least 2 sessions for that. The 5th session, or the second of the end-of-life issues, will be exclusively case discussion. Then we'll move on to one of the serious problems I know, particularly because of COVID. I'm do ethics consultation at the Memorial University Medical Center in Savannah. And as you all know, we serve a number of counties, 5 counties, many of them rural areas. And because of the number of COVID patients that we have in our hospital now, and as well as other patients, we're having a difficulty having transferred patients come into our facility, particularly from the rural areas. And one reason for that is not only the increase of of need to come into a tertiary medical center, but also that we're having difficulty discharging patients. So these are issues that I think are probably impactful now in your own practices. Then we'll move on to boundaries and dual relationships, dealing with things like conflicts of interest, confidentiality, and community activity, which is particularly an issue in the rural areas where our patients find us in Walmart and in various places, in our churches and in various places in our communities. We will want to talk about pediatric practice, then discuss non-capacitated adults and persons with intellectual disabilities. And then finally, we will have available, if need be, to talk about the care for members of the LGBTQI+ population. So those are the suggested, and we will follow this schedule unless something that comes up from the group that will have priority, and we'll certainly prioritize anything that comes up from the group that needs to be discussed. Our schedule is to go every other week, beginning with the 22nd of this month, excuse me, of this September. So we would begin September 22nd and go every other week until December 15th. And then we would take a winter break and then come back for 3 sessions in January, and then 2 sessions in January and 1 in February. So that's kind of the overview. I'm going to quit sharing my screen and leave the any questions or comments or concerns that anybody wants to express.
And I'll jump in and just add one more thing, again, kind of thinking big picture of what our aims and intentions are with this ECHO. We recognize that those of you who are on the call are coming from rural practice environments. It's probably the case that you don't have access to clinical ethicists on call, although if some of you do, that's wonderful. But our hope is that we can, through the brief didactic portions of these sessions and the guided discussion that follows, that we can really equip you all with some clinical ethical tools, so to speak, so that you hopefully walk away from these sessions feeling more confident in your abilities to navigate some of these topics that Dr. Childs outlined. So that's the overarching goal of this. And if there are any questions, again, feel free to either unmute yourself and ask the question or drop a question in the chat.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Bunch and Dr. Childs. Appreciate that, and I want to give plenty of time for anybody to ask any questions that they may have at this point. I'll also, while we're waiting on any questions to percolate into the chat or people to unmute, just wanted to let you know a couple of other things about our sessions. Like Dr. Childs mentioned, they'll go every other week. We think we're going to use this time, the noon hour on Wednesdays, to do that, and anticipate those sessions being contained within an hour. We understand that many people are busy, and many of your clinicians, and we don't want this to be an intrusive, although we think it is important and helpful. Additionally, we have worked with our partners, and we will be able to offer continuing medical education credit for physicians, and also continuing education credit for nurses who are attending this program, which we think will be really, really helpful to many of those of you who are clinicians on the call. And like Dr. Bunch mentioned, our entire goal in this program is to increase capacity within the rural community to take the best possible care of patients. We know there's a lot of high quality medicine going on in our rural communities. We want to be a part of bolstering that good work that you all are already doing. Also, just to be completely clear, there's no cost associated with this program. The Innovation Center and Mercy University School of Medicine have a mission for supporting rural clinicians and rural healthcare across the state. So we're doing this at no cost to the participant, including those CME credits. There'll be no cost associated with that for the recipients. I'll pause there for any questions. I haven't seen anything pop into the chat. I'm not sure if we have any takers for questions today. I guess Dr. Bunch and Dr. Childs, you guys have sufficiently explained what we're doing here and what we're trying to accomplish. I'll talk for a second about next steps. Mr. Gann, I saw you come onto the screen. Did you have a question? Ah, gotcha. Good to see you on the call today. So next steps on, you all registered and provide us an email that we were able to send this link to today. On Monday, we're going to follow up with another email that'll have more details. We'll have that schedule and that list of topics and a link where you can sign up to participate in the full course. A lot of people ask, you know, do you have to be at all of them? We highly encourage it because it is discussion based, and it's nice to have your perspective throughout the discussion. We do encourage folks to attend as many as possible, but we understand that inevitably things come up. So if you were very interested in this and you're kind of worried you might get pulled away for a session or two, we encourage you to go ahead and sign up, go on this journey with us, and we'll make it work. And I think this is a really good time for us to have this discussion. I know we've lived through collectively a whole lot over the past 1.5 to 2 years, and I'm sure all of us have stories about things that went a certain way, and we might like to re-examine it and see if things could have gone differently. There's a lot of difficult situations that we've all dealt with over the past year, and I think this is going to provide us a wonderful opportunity to debrief a lot of that and kind of think through how we've been handling things and how we can handle things in the future.
Hey, Chris, I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
For nursing CEs, how many would the course provide?
We're planning for each of the sessions to provide an hour of credit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Are there any additional questions from the group today? Well, I'd like to thank everybody for your time. Appreciate you logging on. Thank you to Dr. Bunch and Dr. Childs for your time today. We're looking forward to—
Looks like we do have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In the chat.
Yes, from the folks at Three Rivers AHEC. Great. Good to see you guys today. During the registration process, will the Zoom invite include and add to calendar option? That's a good point. Yes, I will make sure that we reserve that time on people's calendars when you sign up for the full ECHO.
You're muted, Chris.
Oh, yes. I really appreciate everybody's time today, and thank you again for joining us, and hope you have a good rest of your day.
Be well, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.